It came as a shock to many when Janice Combs, the mother of Sean Diddy Combs, chose to break her silence. She had remained quiet through the raids, through the witness accounts, and even after the release of damning video evidence.
But now she has stepped forward, and what she's revealed isn't just the defense of a mother. It's something deeper, something far more disturbing.
Janice made her statement public. On the surface, it seemed like an emotional appeal for understanding. But buried within her words was a single sentence that's now drawing intense scrutiny from legal experts, reporters, and even people once close to the case.
She's not merely rejecting the accusations. She's hinting at awareness, knowledge of something hidden for decades, something buried beneath the surface for over 20 years. Please be advised, this video contains sensitive material. Viewer discretion is strongly recommended. The content presented here is meant solely for educational and entertainment purposes. What you're about to hear is a direct account of federal courtroom testimony from the trial of Sean Diddy Combs, as reported by Inner City Press.
So in this video, we explore Janice's statement, what she may have witnessed, what her words suggest, and how her confession could finally expose one of the music industry's most long-held secrets. This may be the moment the narrative begins to unravel, and what she acknowledged might shift everything.
When Janice Combs went public with her message defending her son, most expected the usual language often heard from family members involved in high-profile legal situations: loyalty, denial, and love. And on the surface, that's what it was. She condemned the federal accusations as a public lynching, expressed deep sorrow and pain, and urged the public to wait for all the facts before forming opinions.
But it wasn't just what she said. It was what she left unsaid. Hidden in her support was something unexpected, a brief phrase that hit like a thunderclap. "I've seen what the world hasn't, and I warned Sean." That one sentence shattered the silence. Within hours of the statement appearing on social media, journalists, attorneys, and courtroom observers all began asking the same pressing question. What did Janice witness? And why is she speaking up now? Her message didn't deny every accusation. She didn't suggest her son was set up. She didn't argue against the video clips, text messages, or witness accounts. Instead, she focused on a single emotional narrative, the anguish of watching her son lose his dignity. Not necessarily because of what he did, but because of how the world perceived him. Legal commentators quickly pointed out how peculiar her wording was. "This isn't a denial," one federal prosecutor told CNN. "It's an attempt to shift blame away from him and onto the public's reaction to the evidence."
By this point, the public was already aware of Cassie's testimony. They had heard about the secret tunnels, the infamous freak-off parties, the disturbing texts between Diddy and his alleged victims. So Janice's words weren't just met with doubt, they were met with suspicion. She had remained silent through countless scandals involving her son, nightclub shootings, lawsuits, allegations. But this particular moment felt too calculated, too carefully timed. And as people dug deeper into Janice's relationship with her son, unsettling details began to emerge. This didn't appear to be the unconditional support of a mother. It felt like something else. Now everyone wanted to know what Janice truly meant by saying, "I warned him." That short statement from Janice Combs quickly became the epicenter of a media storm. It was like a razor hidden in the folds of an emotional letter. Once people noticed it, it changed the tone of the entire message.
It wasn't vague. It wasn't masked in metaphor. It was precise, and it suggested prior knowledge. What exactly had she warned Diddy about? That's the question now echoing through federal courtrooms and internet forums alike. Prosecutors are reportedly demanding answers, and legal experts are speculating that Janice Combs might have known, or at least suspected, her son's misconduct years ago. If true, her silence becomes more than just a mother's loyalty. It raises a critical question. Was her recent statement an attempt to shield her son, or was it a subtle attempt to distance herself before the fallout grows worse? Social media didn't hold back. One user posted bluntly, "If she knew and did nothing, isn't that part of the problem?" The phrase, "I warned him," wasn't being interpreted as a motherly lament. It was starting to look like a quiet confession.
The backlash only fueled curiosity. People began combing through old footage, red carpet appearances, interviews, anything that might hint at what Janice knew and when she knew it. And then something odd surfaced. Around 2005, Janice simply vanished from Diddy's public life. No more award shows, no after parties, no glowing interviews. It was as if she deliberately stepped back, retreating from the empire she once proudly supported. In a resurfaced 2007 interview, Janice described Diddy's lifestyle with a strained chuckle. He's very extravagant. He lives fast. Too fast for me. When the interviewer asked if she worried about him, she paused, then quietly said, "I used to. Now I just pray."
Sources close to the family now paint a clearer picture. One insider who worked for Bad Boy Entertainment in the early 2000s said bluntly, she knew things weren't right. She didn't say it out loud, but you could see it in her face. She was worried. That concern, never spoken publicly, might now come back to haunt her. What if "I warned him" wasn't just a figure of speech, but the last echo of something she tried to say years ago? What if she had confronted him, only to be ignored, dismissed, or worse, silenced? Attorneys representing multiple accusers are now seeking to question Janice. If it's proven that she was aware of illegal or abusive behavior and failed to report it, she could become not only a key witness, but potentially face legal consequences herself.
This single line, one sentence in an emotional letter, may end up becoming the thread that unravels an empire. To truly understand the weight of Janice's words, we have to go back. Before the lawsuits, before the mansions and music deals, before the world called him Diddy. Janice Combs wasn't always the mother of a hip-hop mogul. She was a young woman in Harlem, raising a boy in the shadow of tragedy. Her husband, Melvin Combs, was shot and killed when Sean was just 2 years old. Left to raise her son alone, Janice worked as a model and teacher's assistant, doing whatever it took to give him a better life. She believed in her son. She encouraged him, prayed for him, celebrated every win. And when he broke into the music scene in the early 90s, she was there, his biggest cheerleader, standing beside him as his fame skyrocketed. But something changed.
According to family friends, that bond began to crack as Diddy's fame exploded. Diddy got bigger than life, one family friend told The Cut. She couldn't keep up with him. She didn't like the way he was living, but he didn't listen. One former employee of Combs Enterprises recalled a moment that now feels chilling in hindsight. Janice reportedly showed up to one of Diddy's events, uninvited, and left early. It was one of those parties where the girls were barely dressed and there were guys with cameras everywhere, the source said. Janice sat in the corner for maybe 20 minutes, looking uncomfortable. Then she just got up and left, didn't even say goodbye. After that, she was seen less and less at Diddy's side. Whispers began to circulate that Janice didn't approve of the people around him, or the way he treated them.
Now, those whispers have turned into questions. What did she witness? Why did she step away? And why, after all these years, has she chosen this moment to speak? Because that single sentence, "I warned him," may not just be the words of a grieving mother. It might be the beginning of the truth. One source revealed that Janice confided in a close friend, saying this lifestyle is going to destroy him. It's not who he was raised to be, even behind closed doors. Their relationship had grown tense. A former chef who worked in Diddy's Los Angeles home recalled. He looked after her financially, but emotionally, there was distance. They talked, but never about anything real. She'd come over, have dinner, and leave early. It felt like she couldn't bear to see what he was turning into. So when Janice finally spoke out, when she said she had warned him, it struck a nerve, because it aligned with what others had seen.
The shift in his world. The endless parties, the women, the whispered rumors. She had seen it. She had said something. But what did he say in return? That remains a mystery. Diddy never publicly acknowledged any tension with his mother. In interviews, he praised her resilience and sacrifice. But he never once mentioned disapproval. Never once admitted she had voiced concern. Now, as her statement makes headlines, people are asking, is she trying to protect him one last time? Or distance herself before the truth fully unravels? Because as this case moves forward, the scrutiny might not end with Diddy. The court may soon ask what Janice knew, and why she stayed silent for so long. Behind the scenes, Janice Combs was more than a proud mother. She was a quiet observer. She witnessed the meteoric rise of her son's empire, and perhaps the early signs of its decay. And there was one night, one event in particular, that marked a shift in her forever. Miami 2003.
It was supposed to be a celebration. Insiders had whispered about it for years, but only now, after Janice's recent remarks, are investigators revisiting that weekend. A former Bad Boy employee confirmed she had been invited to a private estate in Miami, one of many exclusive gatherings Diddy hosted at the time, often including family, artists, and high-profile guests. Janice brought a friend, Everything seemed glamorous on the surface. Celebrities, gourmet food, tight security. But as the night wore on, something unsettling happened. She reportedly witnessed a young woman, barely dressed, clearly nervous, being led down a hallway by two assistants. What caught Janice's eye wasn't just the girl's youth, but her fear. According to a source present that night, Janice turned to a nearby staffer and asked, "Why does she look scared?" The response? "Don't ask questions. Just enjoy the party." That was her breaking point.
Janice didn't wait for the arranged car. She didn't say goodbye to her son. She quietly called for her own ride and left. She never returned to another one of his parties again. This story had long lived in whispers, a rumor among those close to the family, but it was never confirmed until now. Following Janice's statement, a woman who worked logistics for Diddy's events came forward anonymously. She claimed she left the job after confronting him about what she witnessed and about what she believed was deeply wrong. If these accounts are true, then Janice may have seen the very beginnings of the behavior now detailed in court. The exploitation, the power dynamics, the carefully controlled environments where silence was expected and dissent ignored. And now, in 2025, that night in Miami, long buried in shadows, is being re-examined with fresh eyes and heavier questions.
Because if Janice saw it and said nothing, then she didn't just walk away from the party. She walked away from the truth. It's one thing to leave. It's another to stay silent for 20 years. Now, people are asking the hard questions. Why didn't Janice speak up sooner? If she saw her son becoming dangerous, why didn't she sound the alarm? According to those close to the Combs family, the answer is far more complicated than it seems. There was financial dependence. There was emotional manipulation. And there were quiet, invisible threats. By the mid-2000s, Diddy wasn't just a music mogul. He was an empire. He ran record labels, launched clothing lines, helmed a vodka brand, and had a stake in TV networks. And woven into that empire was Janice. Sources say much of her lifestyle, her homes, her travel, her security, was funded by her son's business ventures. She lived in a luxury property in New Jersey, received a monthly allowance, and had access to perks tied directly to the brand.
She wasn't an employee, said a former accountant, but she was on the books. That meant one thing. If she spoke out and hurt the brand, her entire life could disappear. And Diddy's control didn't end there. His legal team was notorious in the industry. Non-disclosure agreements, defamation threats, and even private investigators hired to silence leaks. Silence wasn't just encouraged, it was enforced. A longtime family friend revealed that in 2011, during a particularly tense period, Janice confided in them. She said, "I tried once. They made it clear. If I go public, it'll ruin everything. Sue." That same year, rumors began swirling about Janice writing a memoir. But just as quickly as the whispers began, they stopped. Insiders now say legal pressure from Diddy's camp shut the project down before a single draft could surface.
But the fear wasn't only legal, it was psychological. One therapist who once treated a former staffer in Diddy's circle described a toxic ecosystem. He used guilt and intimidation. He'd say, "I gave you this life. I put food on your table." That kind of control runs deep. And for Janice, it ran even deeper. She wasn't just an employee, she was his mother. She had watched him grow from a boy in Harlem to one of the most powerful men in entertainment. To admit that he had become someone capable of hurting people, of controlling and exploiting them, meant facing a darker truth, that something inside her son had broken. So she stayed silent, out of fear, out of guilt, out of helplessness. Until now, because something changed. On the fourth day of Cassie Ventura's testimony, the courtroom was packed, pressed shoulder to shoulder, eyes locked on the witness stand.
Prosecutors were preparing to introduce messages and photos spanning from 2009 to 2017, years that matched the exact timeline of Janice's complete public silence. And then came the moment that cracked it all open. Cassie testified, under oath, that Diddy kept a list of men she wasn't allowed to speak to, that he controlled her medication, monitored her phone, forced her to participate in what he called freak-offs. Drug-fueled sex parties involving escorts, cameras, and psychological abuse. She said she once tried to leave, but he blocked the door and threw a bottle at her. And then she dropped the line that shook the courtroom. Janice was there. She knew I was in the house that night. She saw the girls. Silence. Reporters froze mid-type. Prosecutors turned toward the gallery. Janice wasn't in the room, but now her name echoed through it.
Cassie didn't say Janice participated. She didn't say she approved, but she said she witnessed it and said nothing. That night, once court adjourned, Janice was said to have called her attorney, overwhelmed with tears. A source close to the defense team revealed, she confessed, "I can't keep pretending anymore. This is too much to bear." She didn't dispute Cassie's version of events. She didn't refute it. She cracked. And that breaking point led to the statement she made only 2 days afterward. Currently, prosecutors are investigating if Janice might be willing to give confidential testimony. Her lawyer has declined to speak on the matter, yet one phrase from her official declaration continues to capture attention. "I warned him. I pleaded with him, but he refused to stop."
That single sentence may become one of the most chilling admissions of the whole trial, because it's no longer just about a mother standing up for her son. It's about a mother realizing too late that sometimes silence speaks louder than guilt. While public eyes remain fixed on the courtroom theatrics, a more private, emotional confrontation was taking place behind closed doors. After Diddy's arrest by federal authorities, he was put under strict supervision due to the serious nature of the sex trafficking allegations. This meant every call he made from jail was recorded, including a particularly revealing exchange with his mother. 2 insiders familiar with the case said that a flagged phone call between Diddy and Janice Combs was quietly examined by prosecutors. The details weren't meant for public release, at least not at that time.
But what leaked from the recording was enough to raise serious questions about how much Janice truly knew and how fractured their relationship had become. The conversation, which took place just after the 4th day of Cassie Venture's testimony, reportedly began calmly. Diddy tried to lighten the mood, joking about how his children were doing and dismissing the media's attention. But Janice wasn't willing to let it go. With a low, emotional tone, she said, "I told you. I warned you this would come back around." Diddy's reply, silence, followed by frustration. He snapped, "Don't start preaching now, Ma. I don't need this from you." Yet Janice persisted. According to a source with access to the transcript, she responded, "You can't blame the world when this is something you built yourself. You made these choices."
Then came the line that reportedly made prosecutors sit up straight. "You think you're bigger than God, but even he isn't watching out for you now." Diddy lost his temper, cursing at her, demanding she end the lecture. But Janice pressed on. "You think money shields you, but it doesn't, and I've told them everything I needed to say." That last line, "I've told them everything," is now stirring fresh legal interest. Who's she spoken with? When did these conversations happen? And is she preparing to testify? If Janice Combs has already cooperated with investigators or plans to do so, she could become a critical figure in this case. Not because she took part in any crimes, but because she was inside his circle, close enough to witness what others missed, and finally strong enough to stop hiding the truth.
That phone call may reveal not just Diddy's fury, but the moment his own mother ceased defending him and began holding him responsible. Following Janice Combs' public statement that captured national attention, prosecutors sought a subpoena for her personal documents, messages, emails, and handwritten diaries. Most were dismissed as irrelevant. Emotional musings of a mother grappling with her son's downfall. But hidden inside one worn leather-bound journal dated August 2017 was a single page that left investigators stunned. The page read, "He spoke to me about secret passageways. At first, I thought it was a joke. Now I'm not so sure." That was only the opening line. What came next was far more unsettling. These young girls, they're just children. They seem terrified, yet nobody dares to speak up. I believe they're scared of him. And honestly, so am I. He has too many people on his payroll for the truth ever to come out.
Then came the most chilling sentence. "If what he's doing is true, I have failed." This page was given to the lead prosecutor and is currently being evaluated as possible proof of prior awareness and emotional involvement. If accepted as evidence, it could validate long-held suspicions. Janice didn't merely suspect her son of crossing moral lines. She knew he had already done so. The journal was not an official confession or a formal police statement. Nor was it a sworn deposition. But it revealed a mother in deep emotional turmoil confronting the
If even his own mother feared him, how could his aides, girlfriends, or dictants have come forward earlier? Yet despite its brutal honesty, the journal closes with a line heavy with remorse and despair. "I should have done more. I don't know if I can live with myself if this becomes public." Well, now it has. And if prosecutors decide to introduce it, that single diary entry might deliver the emotional blow that finally drives home to the jury the long history of Diddy's dominance, intimidation, and darkness. For weeks, Janice Combs refused to speak to the press. Her statement remained her only public message. But now, insiders close to the prosecution are confirming what many feared and others secretly hoped for. Janice Combs is preparing to testify under confidential conditions. This development stunned both the defense team and Diddy's closest circle. In a sealed court filing, Janice has agreed to give a private, off-the-record deposition to federal prosecutors.
In this setting, she won't be forced to testify publicly, but her words will be recorded and can be used in court if necessary. What she is reportedly ready to reveal is nothing less than devastating. She is expected to corroborate the details of the 2003 Miami party, the frightened girl, the assistants, and the unspoken awareness that something was terribly wrong. She will verify her knowledge of the tunnels, the high-security lockdown events, and, perhaps most crucially, provide first-hand insight into her son's mindset, his obsession with control, and the fear he instilled within his own household. A source close to the legal team said, "She's doing this for the other victims. She understands she can't erase the past, but she wants to make amends." What implications does this have for Diddy? Everything. A mother's testimony, especially one who once stayed silent out of loyalty, carries tremendous weight.
Jurors don't just absorb facts. They feel the sting of betrayal. When a mother stands and declares, "I believed in him once, but I no longer can," it hits far harder than any piece of physical evidence. According to a federal prosecutor, when a man's own mother can no longer defend his character, the emotional battle is already lost. And that is exactly what appears to be happening now. As Janice prepares for her private deposition, Diddy's defense team is in turmoil. Rumors circulate that other witnesses may soon follow her example. Former assistants, ex-partners, and previous allies. The dam is breaking, and the first fracture came from his own mother. This case is no longer solely about whether Sean Combs faces prison. It's about whether anyone in his circle will ever protect him again.